Israeli General Iftach Spector once said, "In the Israeli Air Force, there is a saying, in every fight, believe that your adversary is the best pilot in the world. Now prove that they are not." A combination of daring people and capable aircraft yielded what is to this day the most combat-seasoned Air Force on the globe. Today's video will explore two pioneers of Israeli combat aviation, the Dassault Mirage III, flown by pilot Yoram Agmon. Stick around long enough, and you'll even see a review of HobbyMaster's rendition of Agmon's Mirage III Shahak. Yoram Agmon was born in an area that was called the British-mandated Palestine in the 1930s. As some of you may be aware, if you paid attention in history class, that patch of land would undergo a few name changes between the 1930s and now. Yoram Agmon began his service in the Israeli Defense Force as an infantryman. After 2 years working in the trenches, Agmon figured that he wasn't cut out for military life, working and stomping in the mud. After transferring to the Israeli Defense Force Air Force, hereafter called the IDFAF, he graduated from the Flying School Class 36 in March of 1962. Agmon's first flight in the Israeli Air Force, after his training command, was in the Dassault Ouragan. Agmon, after 4 years on the Ouragan, earned a posting to the hottest ride in the Israeli flying fleet, the Mirage III CJ in 1963. Fun fact, the J in Mirage III CJ stands for Jew. Now, how is that for honesty in military aircraft designations, huh? In 1969, Agmon traveled to the United States for conversion training on what the Israelis would call the sledgehammer, better known in other countries as the F-4E Phantom II. Agmon went on to fly the famous and mighty Phantom II between 1969 and 1970 during the War of Attrition. During the War of Attrition, Agmon would become an ace after killing 3 enemy aircraft in the F-4E through 1973 in the Yom Kippur War of that time. Agmon added a 6th kill during border clashes between Israel and Syria in 1974, becoming a rather rare aviator with A status between the F-4 Phantom II and the Mirage III. Agmon was promoted to the senior staff of the Israeli Air Force and finished his career as the Brigadier General in 1982. One wonders just what kind of stories he might tell in the officers' bars, huh? Through innovation of the earlier Dassault Ouragan, Mystère, and Super Mystère, the Dassault Aviation Company progressively improved their designs over time. As Jean Cobreau, former technical director general at Dassault, put it, "The word inventor is never used here. We talk of improving. Invention is suspect. When we make a plane, we are risking much, far too much, to gamble on it. In France, we do not have the financial resources of the United States. We can never afford to lose." Prescient words when you compare the development cost of the F-35 versus the modern Rafale. But returning to the subject of the Mirage, it was named by Marcel Dassault because he felt that, like a desert mirage, enemy pilots should only see it but never catch it. The aircraft was started as a French requirement for a Mach 2 interceptor. Dassault realized the proposal was flawed and proceeded with a Mach 2 delta wing design based on an enhanced version of a wing which was put forward by British designer Ferry and the American Convair company in the form of the F-102 Delta Dagger. The third iteration of the Mirage design took to the skies in 17 November 1956. Almost 2 years later, the Mirage III became the first European aircraft to break Mach 2. Just under 10 years after that, the Mirage would draw first blood in the skies of the Middle East in July 14, 1966. The MiG-21, even though it was relatively maneuverable at lower altitudes, it was speed limited and could not travel faster than 510 knots below 16,404 feet. This limitation did not apply to the Mirage that it would fight over the Middle Eastern skies. The Soviet technical manuals provided to the Egyptians and Syrians emphasized the high-altitude interception mission for which the MiG-21 F-13 was designed, with no instruction provided on the MiG-21 in 1v1 air combat. While much is said about the American inattention to maneuvering capability at the time, the Soviets had the same doctrine, and therefore the Egyptian and Syrian clients of the Soviets' arms industry were left in the dark about how to use their airplanes in close combat. This contrasted with Israeli efforts to acquire a MiG-21 F-13 via covert operations with the Mossad. This is probably something that would be worthy of its own video, and in fact quite a few people have done reviews and videos about that particular MiG-21. The Israelis acquired the MiG-21 through Iraqi defector Munir Rata. That aircraft was tested by the Israelis. Its vulnerabilities, especially with the location of fuel tanks and flammable components, was identified. And this particular MiG-21 would actually be provided to the United States for evaluation under the Have Donut program. While it was being evaluated under the Have Donut program, many U.S. pilots would fly against it. Tactics would be developed, and the favor of using this aircraft was extended to the United States in exchange for Lyndon Johnson's agreement to allow Israel to buy the F-4E Phantom II. And so the adoption of the Kurnas began with an Iraqi pilot taking his stolen MiG to Israel. While the Israelis were once again studying how to defeat their MiG-21 in combat, the opponents on the Arab side of the fence were almost completely ignorant of how to fight a Mirage. They were aware of the Mirage's capabilities. However, no Mirages came into possession of any of the Arab countries, and therefore they were completely unable to engage those aircraft in one-on-one combat. Several Arab pilots on both the Egyptian and the Syrian air forces would try to maneuver their MiGs in as unofficial way as they could, but there was no organization-wide effort to study and appreciate and improve their capabilities with air-to-air combat. On July 13th, 1966, an Israeli army patrol hit a mine set by Arab guerrillas. After this happened, less than a day later, the Israeli Air Force retaliated with a strike against Syrian battalions and maintenance facilities within Syrian territories. Syrian Air Force Commander Hafez al-Assad, that Assad, whose son would take on a career as an optometrist in Russia after losing his previous job, inherited from his father, a Syrian dictator. His dad, Hafez al-Assad again, ordered 4 MiG-21s to scramble to intercept the Israeli airstrike formation from Demir Air Base. The leader of the front formation never made it back to base. Israeli Mirage IIIs snuck up on him and ambushed the Syrian MiGs, which were flying in accordance with the Soviet tactical guidance of flying at medium altitude to conserve fuel. This dynamic unfortunately made them visually vulnerable to being spotted and ambushed by the Mirages. Let's actually pick up the story from Yoram Agmon's perspective flying the Mirage when he ambushed these very MiGs in question. We, as a force ship, replaced another combat air patrol and were flying along the Golan Heights when Israeli ground control intercept ordered full power west. I knew igniting the Mirage's afterburners with the external tanks attached only wasted fuel, as the jet achieved the same speed without afterburner activated. I'd lag behind a little without the afterburner, but as number 4 in the formation, I was entitled to, so I did not use the afterburner. As we headed east, I observed 2 MiG-21s at low altitude. I requested seeing them, lowered my nose, and jettisoned the external tanks. As I leveled out, I saw them about 2 kilometers ahead of me. They broke from someone apparently warning them. Their visual break surprised me, as it was a beautifully timed maneuver, but it gave me the opportunity to close the distance. I was now in position to open fire on the leading MiG-21. Let's review HobbyMaster's rendition of this Mirage III Shahak. First, for the pros, the Snegma and the Mirage III decals and warning labels, plus the gun vents and the barrels, are really nicely done for 1/72nd scale. Often, things that look good in 1/48 scale tend to not look so good when they're taken down to this level. So it's good to see the small parts and label detail that's done on this aircraft. The ATAR engine nozzle, usually an afterthought on many releases at this size, are well executed here. Typically with HobbyMaster releases, I find myself breaking out the black and chrome paint to spice up what would otherwise be a rather dull affair. Most of their models tend to have plastic gray parts bolted on that are supposed to be, we're supposed to believe are afterburners, but in this case it's done really nicely, and hopefully HobbyMaster can continue to match this level of quality in later releases, especially in the aft end of their airplanes. Next, you get a large selection of air-to-air and air-to-ground stores for the Mirage III. With air-to-air missiles, you get AIM-9B/Schraffier and R-530 radar missiles, plus bombs and rocket pods. So the role of the Mirage III was used for flak suppression and ground attack, as well as air-to-air interception and air-to-air alerts. So the Mirage III kind of had a jack-of-all-trades position in the IDFAF at this time, and you have all the accessories to model it. I do happen to like that when a manufacturer incorporates a comprehensive set of realistic mission equipment, just because if you get a release and it only has air-to-air weapons, well, if you are attached to the model and you want to show it with air-to-ground capability, you're kind of out of luck. That tends to be a complication with many of the U.S. releases, especially ones that have multi-role capabilities like F-18s and F-15Es and the like. A lot of them have just air-to-air weapons when they're air-to-ground capable too, and vice versa, right? So it's good to see that we have a comprehensive selection at work here. The natural metal finish is very even, very sparkly, very nicely done. I have not had the privilege of seeing a period correct Mirage III in person. They're not very common on this side of the pond, unfortunately, in our museums, but from what I can tell of the footage versus the paint of the model, they've done a really good job with the natural metal finish, lacquer color. And the shape of the Mirage III, again, I haven't seen one in person, but from what I can tell, comparing the model to the footage, it is fairly accurate to the overall shaping of the fuselage. Which brings me now to one of the cons that I'd like to point out here. The first is that the cockpit shape is not precisely matching the actual Mirage III shape. And I suspect this is the case because of the need to put enough room in the model for the owner to put a pilot figure in the airplane relatively easily. The Mirage III is not a very big airplane in terms of cockpit capacity, and real-life pilots would have to wriggle around a little bit to get in there. And obviously, a model, you can't do that, right? The 1/72nd scale pilot figure can't twist and turn around the capacity of the cockpit, right? So they have to make it in such a way that if they do put a pilot figure in it, you as the owner can put it in without too much trouble. As it is, even with the size of the cockpit, I had to use tweezers to put the pilot figure in. So I imagine if they had stuck to the blueprints on the matter, it would be kind of like Panzer Camp setup where, you basically don't have, you don't even get a pilot figure for some of them, because there's no way to put one in at the 1/72nd scale sizing. So perhaps that was a compromise done to enable that. And then further, the canopy joint is not accurate to the actual airplane. They have this silver fillet put in, but fortunately this is a problem that can be relatively easily corrected. You just need to put a little bit of paint on the corner with a still of hand and a very, very small paintbrush, and you can more or less correct the canopy shaping on the spot. So overall, the history of the aircraft pretty much demands that you add this to your collection. There are a few flaws that I pointed out, but nothing substantial that would match the criteria for me of not being one to buy. Certainly isn't a project that you'd have to fix after the fact, like some of the blue aircraft that have come out, which are supposed to be gray, like that F4 that I did the project for. Hardly a project model at all. You can basically buy it, and with some minor paint work on the side of the cockpit nose, you're pretty much good to go if you fix the windscreen. So, and it's a beautiful symbol of Israeli resilience and French engineering and ingenuity. So stay tuned. I did get a request for a review of the Dassault Rafale. I've been working on some other models and items to add to my collection, so the Rafale has not made it to my channel yet, but rest assured it will. So keep your eyes out for that review. I will not sit here and make the mistake of committing to when I'm going to publish it, but it will come. And when it does, I suspect you all will be very happy to have it, just as much as I'll be happy to have it in my collection. Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.